All right, so this video, we're gonna be going over the 2 new artifact sets. We're gonna be using math in order to figure out exactly how strong the new artifact set is and going over that specifically. Jump into it. So there are 2 new artifact sets coming in 2.6. The first artifact set is going to be the Vermilion Hereafter, and the second being the Echoes of an Offering. Now, the first set we're going to talk about today is going to be the Vermilion Hereafter, because this is a very easy artifact set to talk about, and then we'll go into the other one. Okay, the Vermilion Hereafter is an artifact set that the 2-piece set bonus is going to increase attack by 18%, and the 4 set piece bonus is a very interesting one because it's for a very popular character in Genshin. After using an elemental burst, this character will gain the Nascent Light effect, increasing attack by 8% for 16 seconds, which is quite a long duration. When the character's HP decreases, their attack will increase by a further 10%. This will increase up to 4 times, and effect increase every 0.8 seconds. So essentially, after about 4 seconds or so, about 3.6 seconds, this set will give a total of 66% attack. Now, a 66% attack set that can only be increased if you continuously lose HP. So right now I'm taking my Gladiator Xiao. Now let's just say we had the exact same stat ratio. I'm gonna give myself 76, 235, 957 base attack, and the set will give me 1044 total over extra attack. Because of my Xiao C6, I get a little bit more elemental damage, so I'm gonna add that in. It's at 108.9. Get 15 from the Viridescent Venerer set, 46.6 from the Goblet. Add in the 25% from Bane of All Evil. Skill ability, let's do a low plunge at 323. I have 46% because I only have attack percentage on the Sands as well as the Gladiator set bonus here, so I have a total of 64% attack. But in order to figure out the total amount of attack I just add the total of 66% on top of it, which is another 632 attack. So adding on all the stuff that we can see, what I found out with Xiao with a 2-piece Iridescent set, as well as a 2-piece attack set, whatever it may be, Gladiator, Shimano, or the new sets, or whatever you're gonna get, you come out to about 53,000 DPS, whereas you would come out with 67,000 with the new set once everything starts coming up and rocking in sequence. And this is before you add any type of bed buffs or geo resonance or anything like that. This is just raw Xiao damage, which would be about a 24% increase in Xiao's overall damage if you're just considering raw damage and not actually adding anything else on top of that. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add on 2 big things, which is gonna be the geo resonance that you're gonna get directly from Xiao, and I'm gonna add on also a Bennett buff, as well as a Noblesse set and Millilith set, which is about roughly 1400 attack. Damage in a pretty significant fashion, up to about 96,000 versus 100 before we put in defense modifiers, and makes it so it's about a 13% overall damage increase. So if you're using Xiao with a Bennett buff and a Geo Resonance, you're not getting as much of a boost. So just know that the set is a very, very, very big buff to Xiao without Bennett, and makes it so that Xiao becomes a non-Bennett reliant character, because Bennett, the addition of Bennett will improve the damage significantly. It just will not improve the damage by nearly as much because of the way the new set's gonna work. The only other character that a lot of people are going to talk about is Hu Tao, and Hu Tao, of course, has a decreasing HP mechanic with a large amount of HP. You could potentially use this on Hu Tao, but when you're looking at Hu Tao with a Staff of Homa at Refine 1, which say, or Refine 5, doesn't matter, her base attack is going to be a total of 715, which means that even with a 66% attack boost, you're getting a very small amount of attack, even with the Staff of Homa, because Hu Tao has a very, very low base attack. So using this with any character with a low base attack, probably not the best option. Now, on a character like Shenhe, this is actually a very interesting set, because this set, if you think about it, gives Shenhe the maximum amount of attack that you can gain. And if you are going to be hit with corrosion, that would be great. But on the set, it says if you leave the field, it doesn't work, and the set is dispelled. So it would not be good for a character like Shenhe, even though she needs a large amount of attack percentage, because it does not work for a character that needs attack to be off field. So this is only going to be good for on-field characters. So pretty much every single sub DPS character in Genshin, this is completely dead set, and you can only use this on characters to be on field for a significant duration. All right, and the next set, which is going to be the focus of the video, which is going to be way more important to talk about because it is called the Echoes of an Offering set, which is another attack percentage set. And this 4-piece set bonus is when a normal attack hits an opponent, there is a 36% chance that it will trigger an effect called Valley Right, which will increase normal attack damage by 70% of attack. We're going to need that buff in a minute. This effect will be dispelled 0.05 seconds after a normal attack deals damage, and if a normal attack fails to trigger Valley Right, the odds of it triggering will increase by 20% per every time it triggers. And this can trigger every 0.2 seconds, which is not every auto attack. So attack speed characters actually don't get improved by this significantly. It can actually trigger every 0.2 seconds, but if you have lots and lots of attack speed, it's not going to trigger tons of times. What you're getting on this set is not going to be a normal attack bonus. The thing is, there is 2 different buffs in Genshin that have normal attack bonus. The first one is going to be a Shimenawa set, which is going to increase normal attack damage by 50%. Second is going to be like a Bolide set, and Gladiator set. These are all percentage damage increase sets. However, this set is a completely different set. And the way this works is actually an additive damage set. And it's the first additive damage of its kind ever been added into Genshin. The way it's an additive damage, it's a different type of damage. It's very similar to 2 different characters in Genshin right now that are going to be Shenhe's Elemental Skill as well as Yunjin's Elemental Burst. So those 2 characters have the exact same type of mechanic. And the reason we know that is because how the verbiage works on those types of things. So the weapon that is most akin to this is going to be the Cinnabar Spindle. Whenever elemental skill damage is dealt to an opponent, of course, their damage is increased by 80% of defense. And the way this is calculated is based upon skill damage. So essentially, when you're using this for a character like Ayato, what's going to happen is if you attack very, very quickly, each attack that you're going to be doing is actually going to have a chance to improve the damage basically off skill damage by 70% plus whatever the skill damage would be dealt by the character. So if the character has low percentage damage hits, like 90% when you're at really high talent level, then this is going to be almost a double damage increase for characters like Ayato. All right, in order to calculate the damage on this, what we're gonna have to do is figure out how the additive damage is gonna incorporate with the new set. So in order to figure this out, what I'm gonna do is take the stats that I currently have on Yoimiya. And the nice thing about the Yoimiya right now is we're using a 2393 attack Yoimiya with a 79-241 crit damage ratio. So because this is gonna be consistent based on the sets, let's just say I had the exact same crit rate and crit damage ratio on this set versus I do the Shimenawa set versus the other one. Now the difference between a Shimenawa set and the new artifact set is the Shimenawa set is going to increase normal charge and plunge attack damage, which is a percentage damage increase. The new artifact set that's coming out is going to be an additive damage increase that adds to normal skill damage. The way that's going to work, if you didn't know, is that if you have a 70% multiplier on the set, it's going to add to each individual hit on top of a Yoimiya hit, kind of similar how a Yunjin kind of adds hits damage. So it's very, very similar to the way Yunjin works for Yoimiya. So by using too many additive characters together, there may be a problem with Yoimiya, and I don't know if it's actually going to be a buff, but it would be a quite good thing to see. So let's go check it out. Yoimiya on a Shimenawa set is going to have a total of a 50% damage boost here, get a 46% damage boost in the Pyro Damage Goblet, and in addition to that, get an additional 2% Pyro damage per hit up to 10 stacks, giving me a total of 20% Pyro damage. This is the total amount of percentage damage we get so far, which is 196.6%, and it would be 156 at R1. So for most characters in Genshin Impact, there's a lot of other multipliers that can be added to things. So with Yoimiya on a Shimenawa set, what's going to happen is the actual damage that you're going to be dealing with Yoimiya's elemental skill is going to be multiplied by a separate multiplier, which is kind of like an additive damage. And that works kind of like the set's going to be working now. The way it works is that Yoimiya is going to do 170% normal attack damage on top of normal damage, which is basically a multiplicative modifier versus what she would have normally. And this actual multiplier here does not multiply against any type of additive damage currently in Genshin, and I do not think it's going to multiply against the new set. I've not seen any beta gameplay or anything like that regarding this, but every other additive multiplier, including Yunjin's buff, and potentially the way that Shenhe could work with her, if you could make it work somehow, does not work as an additive multiplier multiplicatively against this. This is a completely separate modifier that only multiplies against your normal attack that you would do normally. That we can see the damage that we would get on a new set for Yoimiya is going to be a 32,000 damage difference between You're gonna be hitting for about 38,000 normally and 32,000 after at the new set, and that's with no procs being added. Now, about the way the new set works is that you're gonna, about half the time, a little bit more than that, you're going to be getting a proc, and that proc is going to add in another set of damage. If you're getting an average proc of about 6,000, 12,000 damage every other hit, it comes about 6,000 DPS. And if that's about 6,000, you can see that you might get a very small boost on Yoimiya. A very, very, very small boost. However, when you add in like another 1,000 attack by adding a Bennett buff to the mixture, what ends up happening is that you actually don't get as much of a damage add. And the reason being is because the way that the additive damage is going to be put in, as well as multiplied against Yoimiya's damage, is going to be very, very weird. And because all that damage is going to be added to the original damage, you're not going to get as much of a buff. So it does seem like it'll work for Yoimiya, and you'll get bigger spike damage and higher potential maximum hits on Yoimiya, but your overall damage per second is not going to increase by leaps and bounds. So if you're wondering if the new artifact set is going to be good on Yoimiya, it's going to be average, but based upon the percentage damage you have. Now, let's go ahead and get rid of the Bennett buff here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this down to an R1 value across the board. So I'm going to put this down to 156, I'm going to put this down to 106% damage, and we can see the damage that we're going to get on the Yoimiya here. It's dropping all the way down to about 10,000 extra damage. Now, with that and the new set, you can see here you're about 27,000 damage, and if you add it on, let's say another 5,000 DPS, you're actually getting a lot less damage. So what happens with the new set, and the reason I don't think it's going to be super good for a lot of people who are playing Yoimiya, is if you don't have enough percentage damage, you're going to get a lot less damage on your Yoimiya. It's not as good as going for a Shimenawa set because of the way Yoimiya works. Additive damage is not multiplied by Yoimiya's modifier, and the more of it you add, the less impactful it gets. So if you added this type of buff here, and then you added a Yunjin buff on top of it, you can still get a good amount of damage, but you're actually gonna get more damage if you ended up using a Yunjin buff on top of the Shimenawa buff put together, and that's gonna get you the overall best case scenario versus trying to make this new set work. The main issue is that you actually just don't have enough percentage damage. Now, let's say you were not able to get this kind of set and you ended up going with a thing like the Rust on Yoimiya, which means you would be able to get a higher percentage damage across the board, and that's where the damage numbers come in a very different way. You'll notice that with a Rust on Yoimiya, these are the numbers for a Rust, you'll actually get a way bigger value for the damage gain on this. So if you're a player using a Rust on your Yoimiya at Refined 5, you will get these big damage adds on your Yoimiya. However, the issue is, will you get enough attack to make that work, or do you have too much? So if I added on, let's say 1200 attack from a Bennett buff, like I did before, you'll notice that I'll get another 15,000 damage on the proc of the hits, which is about 7,500 damage on average if you're hitting every other proc, which means you're getting a little bit less than the Shimenawa set. So my opinion on this one is that depending on how much percentage damage that you have based upon the weapon you have is going to really determine how good the new set is for you as a player versus other things. And the amount of percentage damage that you have as a player is going to drastically compare to the Shimenawa set as far as is it going to be a better set or not. Now, guaranteed, your top end damage, as in the highest damage numbers that you're going to hit on the team, are going to be higher with the new set. That is a given. But your overall damage per second could be lower, and your average damage could be lower. So if you wanted bigger numbers on Yoimiya, my thought process on this is it's going to be a very good set for spike damage, but less consistent. That's what you're looking for your Yoimiya. This set is a great set for you. Now, I'm about 90% confident with the information I'm going to give you here for the Yunjin and Yoimiya stuff as the way it all works, because of all the math I've done previously about additive damage and testing, as well on many different characters and that and the like. But the set is not out yet, and the additive damage might be in a different formulaic way where you can actually use this additive damage inside of Yoimiya's multiplier, which would make it the most broken set in Genshin Impact for her, but we don't know that that's going to be the case. And if it is multiplied by Yoimiya's modifier, it will definitely be broken for her. But if it doesn't, which is the likely option, I'm about 90% confident because not everything else doesn't work like that, it's going to be worse or the same. The problem with this artifact set is that it's not going to be good for everyone because not everyone is good with additive damage. The way that we can kind of determine that is if characters have a high percentage damage already, that's not going to be good for them. So characters that do have that high percentage damage, like your boy Razor, who have a very high amount of percentage damage when you get their normal attacks leveled up, are going to do significantly worse with the set. So the character that's actually most interesting with this set that's not out, that people are going to have at Constellation 0 most likely, is going to be Tartaglia. And Tartaglia as a character is quite interesting with the set, because with Tartaglia you also get a really interesting Ascension stat, and that Ascension stat of course is Hydro damage bonus. And because you get a Hydro damage bonus on Tartaglia, he's actually going to take his Ascension stat, which is Hydro damage bonus, as well as getting the not the 2-piece Hydro set or the 3-piece or the 4-piece Hydro set, but you'll also get any kind of percentage damage modifiers can be added to it. So if you were using a weapon like Thundering Pulse on Tartaglia and trying to use this with Tartaglia, that would actually be quite good. Characters in Genshin that the set could be good on is any normal attacking character. It doesn't really matter which one. The character that I thought would be most interesting with this set, actually, which is very, very funny, which is going to be Hu Tao. Weird thing about Hu Tao is that she does have that low base attack problem where, like, whenever you're using the character, you have a ridiculously low base attack depending on your weapon. And if you end up using a Shimenawa set, you end up getting a large amount of percentage damage for normal charge and plunge attack. But with a character like Hu Tao, one of the things that would be most to consider is that Hu Tao has a very, very low percentage damage when you're using her auto attacks. And her auto attacks are actually really good because of the way her elemental skill works. Her charge attack does 228 on damage, and if you look at her sequence and combos, that's basically a 3-hit combo. So if you're a player with a C1 Hu Tao already, and you're using charge attack spam consistently, that doesn't really seem like the best choice of the way to go. But if you aren't using a C1 Hu Tao, this looks like it could be a potentially good set for her because of the high amount of attack that Hu Tao is going to have based upon the attack increase by her normal HP. She's also a character getting an extra 33% pyro damage when you're using her naturally with the Sanguine Roach, and if that's the case and you have a large amount of attack, you can use her with characters like Kazuha in order to get more percentage damage, and then adding on this overall set to get an auto attack style build in order to do lots of damage. Now, I don't know if it's going to be better than using the normal charge attack build, but that sounds like a really interesting way of playing the character. Now, there's a lot of other characters like Ningguang in the game that do have really low modifiers on normal attack that sound really interesting to this, but the problem, of course, with these characters is that there are a lot of split scaling characters because they have normal attacks, charge attacks mixed in the mix, elemental scale, elemental burst in their damage, and there's many characters that have split scaling. And split scaling characters, well, aren't really the best, but characters like Hu Tao that are more normal and charge attack focused when using other sets, they're actually a little bit better. But there aren't too many of those in Genshin Impact because in the character roster of Genshin Impact, most characters are either charge attack characters like Ayaka and Ganyu, and the normal attack characters are actually much, much lower. The only characters that actually I would consider normal attack characters at this point are going to be Yoimiya, Tartaglia, Razor, Aloy, and a Chi-Chi. Other characters like Raiden Shogun are just strictly elemental burst characters, so you can't even consider them. And the only other one would be Kokomi. So there's a lot of normal attack characters in Genshin that could potentially benefit from this set, but the reality is I'm not sure if they're going to be good with this set because of the way it procs and how it interacts with the overall stats that you're going to have. And characters with too much split scaling are going to be a lot worse with this set because if you have more split scaling, you're not going to get as much damage boost on those other abilities, which is going to nerf your overall damage per second. Well, that's gonna be it for this video. My name's Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Anyways, enjoy the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, of course, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Let me know what you guys think about the math on this in the comment section down below. You have a wonderful rest of your day.